They were called the harmless ones. That was the running joke among the Galactic Council whenever Earth came up in conversation. No hyperdrive, no influence, no seat at the table. To most species, humans were a curiosity, a planet-wide case study in emotional chaos and tribal politics. A race too impulsive to be dangerous, too fractured to be organized. Which is why Jun was confused, deeply confused, because what he found in their records didn't match the galactic opinion at all. Jun was a field archivist from the Iskar Dominion. His job was simple: observe, catalog, and move on. But Earth wouldn't let him move on. Every file he accessed, every broadcast, every historical document told the same impossible story. These so-called primitives had an obsession with war that bordered on spiritual. Not just violence, not chaos. Structured, strategic, efficient war. Humans didn't just fight, they trained to fight. They romanticized it. They turned pain into poetry and slaughter into legend. Jun had cataloged hundreds of civilizations. Most of them grew out of violence. That part wasn't unique. What was unique was the fact that humans hadn't. Despite being capable of world-ending destruction, they still waged wars over ideas, borders, and history. There was a word in one of their older dialects, glory. It appeared repeatedly in war journals, speeches, and memorials. It had no direct translation in Galactic Standard. Closest match was noble bloodshed, but even that fell short. He accessed a translated broadcast from something called World War II. A human general spoke calmly into the camera. "We fight not because we want to, but because surrender is worse." The message was calm, calculated, unapologetic. Jun flagged the entry. His supervisor, Archivist Vesh, sent back a one-line response. Drop the subject. Earth is a closed file for a reason. That should have been the end of it. But Jun couldn't let it go. He had never seen a species like this. One moment, they were writing lullabies for their children. The next, they were constructing weapons capable of vaporizing cities. He began digging into ancient Earth logs, military doctrines, strategy games, disaster simulations. The deeper he went, the stranger things became. Earth was tagged as red status observation only. No contact, no interference. That alone was strange. Most red status worlds were home to biohazards or unstable suns. But Earth, it was thriving, loud, chaotic, and utterly alive. One night, he ran a pattern recognition sweep across human literature and psychological studies. Something triggered an anomaly in the system. Jun's AI assistant, Frel, identified a recurring sequence in human neurological data. It wasn't random. It was locked. Deep within every human mind was a dormant cluster of neural pathways. Inactive, unused, sealed. He stared at the screen. Neural locks weren't natural. They were engineered. These weren't evolutionary leftovers. These were inhibitors, genetic breaks. Someone, or something, had placed hard-coded limits on the human brain. He asked Frel to trace the lock structure. It matched nothing in the Galactic Genome Index. Not Varkon splicing, not Drothy recursion. Then Frel ran a final cross-reference and paused. The design was human. Jun sat back, stunned. Humans had locked themselves down. On purpose. That raised one question he couldn't shake. Why would a species imprison its own potential? Frel accessed restricted files and stumbled onto something more disturbing. Ancient logs from the Mavari Empire. Long extinct, wiped from existence over 6,000 cycles ago. These logs have been deleted from most databases. Buried, but fragments survived in outlaw servers scattered around forgotten moons. Jun pulled what he could. The entries were brief, shattered. They read like battlefield screams, captured mid-death. They were calm before the burning. We underestimated their grief. We didn't know rage until it smiled at us. That last line sent a chill down Jun's spine. The Mavari had tried to conquer Earth. No record of this existed in Council history. Earth had no monuments, no stories, no scars from such an invasion. But the Mavari, they had one last entry before their empire vanished. We sealed them. We begged the stars for forgiveness. May no one wake the dormant gods. Jun checked again. Earth had no mention of the Mavari. No folklore, no myth. As if the whole event had been scrubbed from their collective memory, or buried deliberately. He searched for council commentary on the Mavari purge. Nothing. It was as if the council had agreed to forget. That was the real secret of Earth. Not that they were weak, but that they chose to appear that way. He turned back to human data. Their war history wasn't erratic. It was cyclic. Rise, destruction, peace. Then rise again. Each time, they got smarter, deadlier. Each time, they buried the trauma deeper. The Aegis Protocol, now clearly misnamed, wasn't protection from humans. It was protection of the galaxy from humans. Frel ran a stress simulation model using the Dormant pathways. The result was catastrophic. In a red state unlock scenario, the average human could outperform Tier 4 combat androids, adapt within 1.2 seconds to new threats, and resist all known forms of mental disruption. They wouldn't rage. They would calculate. Jun submitted a revised report to Vesh, outlining his findings. The report was returned unread, marked rejected, do not pursue. An encrypted message followed. Drop the Earth subject, or you'll be reassigned to the dead zones. Jun didn't care. The data was there. He had seen it, but the galaxy hadn't. And when the Krith Syndicate launched a raid on Earth 2 cycles later, he knew what was about to happen. They thought they were attacking primitives. They were about to wake gods. The Krith Syndicate began their incursion with confidence. To them, Earth was ripe for harvest. Resource-rich, defenseless, and barely spacefaring. Their ships entered orbit undetected. They jammed satellites, shut down communication grids, and landed their first strike teams on rural sectors. It was surgical, fast, clean, and wrong. They expected panic. They got silence. Their scouts reported small pockets of disorganized human resistance. Nothing coordinated. But then the anomalies began. Krith Command lost contact with 2 entire platoons in the Amazon sector. No bodies, no black box data, just static and, in one case, a short burst of garbled audio. Rhythmic breathing, followed by whispering in a language the translator couldn't recognize. The third drop zone reported resistance. Farmers using improvised weapons, yet moving with unnatural precision. Not rage, not desperation. Calm, deliberate. By the time the Krith realized something was off, it was too late. Human neural patterns were changing. Jun, monitoring everything from a covert Iskar relay, watched in disbelief. Frel confirmed it. The inhibitors were unraveling. The locked neural clusters, previously dormant, were firing, one by one, across continents. It wasn't total, not yet, but enough. Stress was the trigger, not anger, not violence. Loss, fear, pressure, the emotional chaos humans were known for, now serving as fuel. Frel's voice trembled for the first time. Cognitive acceleration confirmed. They're beginning to synchronize across instinct layers. Jun couldn't believe it. There were no implants, no command networks, just human minds, adapting in real time. A Krith officer transmitted a distress signal. They're not breaking. They're watching us like hunters. Their eyes, they don't blink. In Brazil, a teenage girl took control of a downed Krith skimmer and rewired its interface in less than 90 seconds, despite no formal training. She then used it to broadcast encrypted military orders to nearby resistance cells. The encryption was Krith. She had cracked it by watching the interface. Frel's prediction model collapsed. They're exceeding every theoretical ceiling. These aren't instinctual responses. This is selective awakening. By the 4th day, Krith forces attempted a strategic retreat. Their command ships initiated orbital bombardment protocols. It didn't matter. Human ground teams had already boarded 2 of them. No entry wounds, no breach logs, just sudden loss of control followed by a chilling message, transmitted in Krith language. You taught us where to cut. Back in orbit, Jun received a scrambled transmission from Earth. A young human man stood in the ruins of a destroyed transport hub, ash falling around him. Eyes calm, voice clear. We tried peace. We offer patience. You mistook it for weakness. Frel attempted to identify him. No match. Civilian. No military background. No leadership tags. Still, he coordinated multiple sectors like a seasoned commander. No hesitation. His mind had crossed the threshold. The Red Core state was no longer theory. Jun cross-referenced footage from the Mavari logs. Same posture, same tone, same terrifying serenity. The look of someone who wasn't fighting for survival. Someone optimizing the battle. Frel whispered. The inhibitors didn't erase who they were. They only bought the galaxy time. Elsewhere, Krith capital ships attempted orbital escape. But Earth systems, long considered primitive, activated satellites that had remained dark for over a century. They didn't fire weapons. They fired signals. Encrypted patterns that caused Krith AI systems to seize. Entire navigation protocols overwritten. Command chains dissolved. The Krith fleets spun in chaos, firing blindly, retreating into each other, colliding in panic spirals. Humans hadn't needed weapons. They had prepared for this centuries ago. Frel found one final buried archive tagged Red Class Inherited Memory. Human scientists, long forgotten, speaking directly into an ancient camera. If you're watching this, then we failed to remain at peace. We hoped we'd evolve beyond war. But if we haven't, this is our insurance. Not for us. For the stars. Jun's hands trembled. Earth wasn't a backwater world. It was a quarantine vault, and the lock had broken. The Krith Council issued an emergency broadcast to all outer systems. Earth is no longer a viable target. Repeat, do not engage. Cease all operations. But it was already too late. Within a week, Krith High Command lost control over every occupied zone. Entire strike teams disappeared. No distress calls, no wreckage, nothing. Human resistance no longer looked like resistance. It looked like containment. Strategy simulations showed impossible numbers. 96% predictive accuracy on human counterattacks. A casualty-to-kill ratio that defied logic, and most disturbingly, 0 recorded emotional breakdowns. Human soldiers weren't fighting with fury. They were calm, measured, relentless. In Nairobi, a group of human engineers modified atmospheric drones into autonomous combat units using nothing but parts scavenged from agricultural machines. In Northern Europe, unarmed civilians lured Krith squads into terrain traps so intricate, Frel compared them to ancient predator tactics. Ones not seen since the extinction of apex creatures on Iskar Prime. But this wasn't instinct. It was intent. Frel's core directive, objectivity, began to fail. Even the AI couldn't rationalize what it was witnessing. They're rewriting themselves in real time, it said. The neural locks were never permanent. They were keys, conditions-based, and now the conditions have been met. Jun checked real-time psych maps of the human population. In active zones, brain activity spiked in areas usually dormant in peaceful species. Hyperconnectivity, nonlinear cognition. It was as if humanity's collective mind had flipped a switch. And the terrifying part, they were still holding back. A Krith vessel attempted one final act of control, a desperation move. They launched a targeted neurodisruptor into a major city center. The device was designed to collapse higher cognition, reduce organized resistance to blind panic. It landed, it activated, and it failed. Humans near the blast radius didn't fall. They adapted. Within minutes, they had traced the disruptor's signal path, triangulated the source ship's orbit, and fed those coordinates into Earth's dormant rail cannon systems, long assumed decommissioned. A single kinetic round obliterated the Krith command vessel before their systems even logged the trajectory. Frel confirmed what Jun feared. Their minds are now processing at tactical levels beyond our forecasting models. They're no longer reactive. They're predictive. One message leaked across subspace. Origin unknown, but undeniably human. You brought weapons. We bring purpose. In the ruins of Jakarta, a Krith warlord begged for evacuation. His final message, intercepted by Jun, described humans walking through fire unfazed, speaking calmly amid the screams, organizing evacuations for both sides, including wounded Krith. The warlord whispered, "They're not monsters. There's something worse. They understand us, and they don't hate us. They've already forgiven us. That's how I know we're finished." Earth's response to the Krith surrender was not vengeance. It was analysis. Captured ships were dismantled within hours. Alien tech was reverse-engineered, improved, and then reassembled under human control. They didn't want conquest. They wanted understanding. But the more they understood, the more dangerous they became. Every Krith weakness, every strategic blind spot, memorized, cataloged, countered. Humans had turned war into science. And now that science was awake, Jun's final report to the Iskar Dominion was blocked. Data corrupted. Council silence. No one wanted to hear it. He was alone in orbit, watching the impossible unfold. In a private log, he recorded one last observation. They feel no triumph in victory, no joy in survival. It's as if part of them knew this would happen, as if they always feared the day they'd be forced to remember. And in that remembering, they had become something else. Not invaders, not heroes, not even soldiers. They had become inevitable. Earth didn't retaliate, not in the way the galaxy expected. After the Krith's surrender, the world governments didn't declare victory. No parades, no speeches, no threats. They simply gathered the wreckage, dissected the enemy's strategy, and began preparing for the next possible conflict, calmly, collectively, and without hesitation. The Galactic Council scrambled to make sense of what had happened. The Syndicate was in shambles. Hundreds of ships lost, billions in military assets gone. Yet Earth's population remained largely intact, its infrastructure recovering faster than predictive models suggested possible. Entire nations were working together with an efficiency never before recorded in their history. Because they remembered, the inhibitors that once sealed humanity's full cognitive capacity had been deactivated not by technology, but by need. Fear had opened the door, but clarity had stepped through. The galaxy now watched a species that had rediscovered its buried inheritance. Not a weapon, but a mindset. Not chaos, but perfect order under pressure. Galactic diplomats sent envoys to Earth. Every request for entry was denied, not with malice, just silence. Then Earth responded. One message, unencrypted, addressed to the stars. We remember the Mavari. We remember what we chose to forget. We will not forget again. That message triggered a deep alarm within Council records. Ancient redacted files, sealed for thousands of years, surfaced in panicked bursts across internal servers. Mentions of Earth as a legacy threat. References to protocols to keep humanity isolated, confused, and distracted indefinitely. Earth had never been ignored because it was weak. It had been managed. And now the management system had failed. Frel analyzed Earth's current development rate and estimated they would reach Tier 5 interstellar capabilities within 2 planetary cycles. That was impossible, and yet, all the data confirmed it. Their tech was no longer limited by tools, but by imagination. Their minds were no longer restrained. One by one, other galactic species began withdrawing from Earth's orbit. Science vessels, trade probes, survey drones, all recalled. No orders were given. Fear did not need instructions. And still, Earth made no move to expand. No fleets, no invasions. They stayed home, but their silence spoke louder than weapons. Jun remained in orbit, against orders. He couldn't leave, not without finishing his final entry. He recorded what would be the last field report of his career. Earth is not a war world. It is a choice. A species that imprisoned its worst self for the sake of peace, and unlocked it only when pushed beyond reason. They are not predators. They are protectors with nothing left to protect. That's what makes them dangerous. A week later, a new signal emerged from Earth. This one encrypted, layered with old Mavari code. Something no species should still remember. But Earth remembered. The message said, "We are not coming. We don't have to. You brought yourselves to us. You will never forget that again." Across the galaxy, whispers grew. Not fear of attack, fear of exposure. Fear that Earth would not conquer the stars, but reveal their true face to themselves. That humanity would hold up a mirror to the galaxy and force them to answer the same question humans once did. What are we capable of when the worst parts of us are set free? The answer echoed in the silent sky, where Earth now waited, not as a forgotten backwater planet, but as the sleeping god that had finally opened its eyes. And it was watching,